I'm going to give you 3 different methods to help you fit the most guns in your safe. Now let's jump into it. Step number 1, open up your safe and take everything out, making absolute certain that your wife doesn't see how many guns you actually have. Whew, alright, that should be everything. Really? Yeah, I mean, the only other thing left in there is shelves. I said everything, didn't I? Well, let me rephrase that. I should say everything besides these mounting strips and then these dividers. Now is also a good time to make sure that everything is unloaded. With everything out of the safe, go ahead and take your handguns and put them somewhere else. You're not going to need those for a little while. With your long guns, what I want you to do is separate them into a short long gun pile and then a long gun pile. Wait, what? Basically, take all of your long guns that are considerably shorter than everything else and go ahead and put them in one pile. In my case, the longest of the short long guns is actually about 37 inches. That should be a pretty good reference point. Yours may be a little bit longer. Anyway, put those in one pile. Everything else that's left, put it in another pile, and that is your long gun pile. Looking good, but I may have lied to you a little bit because I want you to put your AR style rifles, all of them, in the short pile over here, no matter how long they are. It'll make more sense in a minute. With all of your ARs in the short pile, go ahead and break them down into their upper and lower halves besides the 1 or 2 that you want to keep ready to go. Keep in mind that it really helps if you snap your fingers during this step. There we go, I still got the magic powers. Also, if you have an AR style pistol or an SBR, it's probably a good idea to keep these ones together just in case the ATF somehow finds themselves in your house and your safe manufacturer magically gives them the code. Anyway, take all your uppers and place them in one pile, and take all your lowers and place them in another pile lined up beside each other. With the lowers lined up, go ahead and find the tallest lower from the bottom of the grip to the top of the receiver, or the top of the cheek piece if you have one, and it's taller, obviously. When you find the lower with the tallest profile, go ahead and place it face down at the bottom of the safe. So the top of the grip is going to be your limiting factor, so go ahead and mark out where you think the bottom of the shelf needs to be at all of these mounting points. After placing the shelf, make sure that you can pull out the lower without it catching on anything. If you can do that and put it back in, you should be good to go. Make sure that your shelf is rated for a lot of weight because this is going to be where you're putting the rest of your uppers and the rest of your short long guns. You may even need to add bracing on the bottom of your shelf depending on how heavy your stuff is. If your safe doesn't have these mounting strips going all the way to the bottom, then you may want to add some, or you could just build some legs underneath the shelf itself. If your safe is not very deep, keep in mind that you may not be able to fit a fixed stock like this A2 stock because the door's not going to be able to close, especially on an AR-10 lower. These things are already pretty long as it is. Also keep in mind that you may have to collapse all of your collapsible stocks as well. But anyway, go ahead and throw the rest of the lowers into the safe. And if you have a bunch of the same receiver sets, you may want to color code the uppers and lowers to help you remember which goes with which. With the rest of your short long guns in a pile, find the longest one and put it in your safe. Now is where things get a little different depending on how your safe is set up. Place the longest of the short long guns on top of the shelf that you just put in, and then place another shelf directly above the muzzle of this gun, making sure that you give yourself enough room to pull out the gun as well. Pretty tight fit, but there is still plenty of room for it to come out. Anyway, make sure that the shelf is properly mounted and you are good to go to put the rest of your short long guns in the safe. Keep in mind that this method works best if you keep all of your uppers on one side to make room for the wider guns on the other side. And now you're good to put all of your handguns, magazines, or whatever else you want to put on the top shelf in there. And if your safe is set up for it, it may be helpful to put another shelf somewhere above this one as well. If your safe has something like this, and you're wanting to fit the most guns in your safe, it's probably a good idea to try and find a way to remove it without ruining the structural integrity of the divider in the middle. Now, if you like it for some crazy reason, that's up to you. You can keep it in, but I'm just telling you, unless you have a bunch of lever actions or standard shotguns with iron sights, they're pretty much useless, and they're gonna really limit the number of guns that you can fit in your safe. Regardless, go ahead and place all of your short long guns and all of your uppers into the safe, just like the other style safe. With everything else in the safe, go ahead and place your long guns on the other side. If your safe is set up for it, placing a shelf above the tallest rifle is not a bad idea either. So, there it is. There's method number 1, and depending on how your safe is set up, you may not have to spend any money at all to do this one. Keep in mind that there is a ton more room for a bunch more different long guns, and a bunch more different handguns obviously, but anyway, this is a good reference point. And that is method number 1. Depending on how your safe is set up, you may not have to spend any money at all with this one. But let's just say that you don't have a ton of ARs, or you just want to maximize the number of long guns on the other half of the safe. Well, there's really only one way to do so, and that's by switching everything over to iron sights. No, I'm just kidding. It's by switching over all of your scope mounts to quick detach scope mounts. Anyway, this method is definitely not going to be for everyone, but if you do decide to switch everything over, here are a couple things that I would recommend to keep everything organized. Like method number 1, go ahead and separate all of your short long guns and all of your long guns, and go ahead and place a couple shelves either above or below the short long gun side to make sure that you could still keep all of your optics in the safe. Whether you want to use nail polish, paint, tape, or something else, I would recommend using a color coding system or a number system to remember which scope goes with which rifle or which long gun. If you're using a rail, it's a good idea to mark where the rings need to be placed to ensure that they go to the same spot every time. However you want to mark this out is up to you, but I will let you know that there are clips out there that do exactly this. And that is method number 2. Pretty simple, and it can save a ton of room, but it can also be pretty freaking expensive. Wait, did that just say downsizing? Yes, it did. Well, on to the next video. Whoa, hold on now. You can still have the same number of guns, but obviously downsizing the handguns will save a ton of room. Well, with most handguns. So if you replace all your long guns, or at least a pretty good portion of them with handguns, then you're pretty much guaranteed to fit at least the number of guns the safe claims to be able to fit in it, or probably even more, I'm just saying. So there you go, that's method number 3. I know it's not for everybody, but I really hope that at least one of these methods helps you to fit more guns in your safe.